Good morning. Welcome to Planning Center University. My name is Daniel, and today we are going to be talking about Planning Center People, which is our app to help you keep your church organized. One of them, anyways. Today, we're going to be talking for about 45 minutes about Planning Center People, and with the goal of we're going to go over some of the key features. With at the end of it, hopefully, you will have a good idea of how you can implement it in your church. And get started with it. This video is going to be available on planning.center/university, so you can share this video later with your coworkers or your teammates, or come back and see anything that you missed. Okay, so let's dive right in. We've got a lot to cover today, and we are going to start right here in Planning Center People. This is our dashboard. So the dashboard is going to cover some of the high-level demographic information about the people in your church. Also give you a good jumping off point for some of the common actions that you'll have in this app. And all that's going to make a lot more sense as we get into it and cover some of those basics. So let's start with the very most basic thing in all of Planning Center People. In an app called People, you can probably guess the most basic thing is a person, right? So I'm going to use the search box and, go look at Joe Smith's profile. Okay, so Joe this is Joe. We're going to be looking at his profile quite a bit today. And you would come to somebody's profile to look up like specifics about Joe. So if you want to know his phone number or his address, something like that. Also to get a high-level overview of his activity in your church. And we'll be going over both of those here in a few minutes. There's three ways that profiles are going to get into your Planning Center database in the first place. So first is you could do it manually. So you can just add a person, type in his name, hit enter, save, and you've got a profile for him. That works if you don't have a ton of profiles to add at once. They also will come in through our Church Center apps. So if Joe decides to give a donation or register for an event and he's not already in your database, we'll automatically create a profile inside Planning Center, and he'll be there automatically. And the third way, and this is a real common way, if you are moving from another system, like another church management system, or even if you have like a Google spreadsheet or an Excel document full of names and email addresses, etc., you can do what's called a CSV import. So CSV is a file type. So you can export a CSV from your old system and then import that CSV into Planning Center. We're not going to go through the details of how to do that. What I'm going to do is one better. I'm going to show you how to use our help desk. Okay, so if I click on this little question mark up here, that's going to open up our help desk. And this is the portal to all Knowledge Planning Center is available right here. So when you open this, the first three, or you're going to see some suggested articles. These are suggested based on the page that you're looking at and common actions that you might be trying to do there. If those don't answer your question, you could ask the question. I'm going to search for CSV. And the first thing that shows up here is a link to our documentation about importing a CSV file. So you can follow that link and that will take you to the CSV import page. And if neither of those help you out, you still don't have your question answered, talk to our support team. They are fantastic. Open up a ticket. During regular business hours, they will almost always get back to you in less than an hour. Right now, they're looking at about 20-minute response time. So give them a call, give them an email, and they will answer your questions. They are so good. We really pride ourselves on them. Don't hesitate to use them. There's no requirement that you are a certain permission level. Anybody can contact them. We love hearing from you. Just try them out. They're really good. Okay, back to Joe's page. Let's talk about some of the key features here and why you might want to use them in the first place. And we're going to start with Joe's household. Over here on the right is Joe's household. Here's Joe. Here's his wife, Jordan. They've got a daughter named Lana. You would use these households for a few different things inside Planning Center. First of all, it's just nice to look at his profile and know his kids' names. But secondly, check-ins uses these households on check-in stations. So when Joe goes to a check-in station and puts in his phone number, all of his kids in his household will show up as available to check in. And then also services uses households as well for scheduling preferences. So if Joe and Jordan both serve on, like, as say, ushers, then in services you can say Joe and Jordan prefer to serve on the same weekend, and that'll help people as they're scheduling to know how to schedule these people together. So households are super powerful throughout Planning Center. And they're really easy to use. Just hit that pencil icon and it'll walk you through setting up his household. Down here are Joe's social profiles. These were pulled in automatically based on his email address. Every time you add an email address to someone's profile, we'll go out and search Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and hopefully find a profile and even a photo sometimes. So this is really great if you have a database that doesn't have a lot of photos but does have a lot of emails. Sometimes we can find these photos. So here's one from his from Twitter, and you can click to make that Twitter profile photo his Planning Center People profile photo. So it's a great way to get pictures into your database. So Joe's a member of our church. He's just like a regular member. He's not on staff. He's not like a team leader or anything like that. He just kind of comes to our church. And so this is not a page that he will ever see. This is Planning Center People is designed for your church staff and your key leaders to collaborate and to share information. It's not like a church directory. But let's say Joe got hired for something. He's gonna join your staff, and you need to give him some permissions. We can come to this little gear thing and give him some permissions. There's a few different permission levels in People. Right now he has no access, which is what most people in your church are going to have. He can be a viewer, which lets him log in and view profiles, but not edit them. And he can also be a manager. And what a manager can do is customize Planning Center as well. So as we go through the day, we're gonna see some parts of this app where you can set it up specific to your church. And Joe, if we gave him manager access, he would be able to do that. This modal also shows his permissions in a few other places. He's a group member, and it looks like he's a scheduler in services. So that's his permissions throughout all of Planning Center. I'm not actually gonna make any changes here. I mentioned he's a member, and I'm a manager. So when I click on this member dropdown, I get a little button that says Manage Statuses. These are membership statuses. These are the defaults, but you can customize these if you are a manager using that Manage button. So that's one example of where Manage permissions come into play. Right next to that is his campus. He attends the San Diego campus. If your church uses multiple campuses, you'll see this drop down here. If you don't, you won't. And if you are a multi-campus church and you don't see drop downs, you need to set up your campuses inside our Accounts app. So just use that help desk and search for accounts, and it'll give you all the directions you need. Okay, so let's say Joe just volunteered for children's ministry, and we need to add a background check to his profile. Now, what's great about adding these background checks in Planning Center is that it does a lot more than just track whether or not, yes, no, he has a clear background check. Those background checks are used in our other apps as well. So in services, you can set up his position. You can say all the teachers in this classroom or all of these classrooms, they can't even be scheduled until they have a clear background check on file. And then in check-ins, when Joe comes in to check in as a volunteer into that classroom, if he doesn't have a cleared background check on file, it won't even let him check him in. So it's a great way to help keep your ministry safe. So let's talk about those for a minute. I'm going to add a background check. There's two ways to get background checks in here. One way is manually. If you have an old system or a whole bunch of old background checks and you bring in, you can use a manual check. But the much preferred, much better way is to use the integrated checker. We've worked with a company called Checker to integrate background checks into Planning Center. And these are fantastic. Checker is great to work with. They provide fast, reliable background checks. And oftentimes the results are nearly instantaneous after the person has accepted their consent and everything. So we come in here, choose a package level, and order the background check. I'm not actually going to start it here, but if I did, what would happen is we would send, or actually Checker would send an email to Joe that says, hey, this church, Centerville Church, that's our church, Centerville Church would like to send a background or do a background check on you. Do you consent? And he could provide his consent and some additional information, read all his disclosures, hit next. And in most counties, depending on where you live and where Joe lives and where he's lived in the past, most counties, those results come in instantly. They're all digitized. There are counties in the world where the results aren't digitized yet. It might take a couple days, but it's super easy. Highly recommend using Checker. We don't get any kind of a kickback or profit share or anything like that. We just think they're a great company and really like working with them. So I highly recommend you use them. Even if you don't use Checker, use somebody. It's really good for your church. Okay, so we've gone over most of the built-in basic fields here. But your church probably has your own information that you want to track, right? You've got, maybe you want to track Joe's baptism date or his favorite Starbucks drink or something like that. How could you do that? We can do that with our custom tabs. So over here on the left are custom tabs. If you're looking at your own account, you may not have any yet, but I'll show you how to set those up here in just a second. This church has a few tabs. We're going to look at the membership info tab. And we've decided we also want to track Joe's testimony, his baptism date. This membership covenant is actually a file upload. So if we had like a PDF of a signed membership covenant, you could upload that and save it on his profile. I'm going to show you how to update these, okay? How to add these custom fields. Go to the People tab up here. If you're a manager, you'll be able to click on this gear and click Customize Fields, okay? So here's all those tabs that we saw a minute ago. I'm going to click on Membership Info, and let's just add one. We're going to add the Membership Class Completion Date. Okay, that's going to be a date field. But you see there's all these different options here. There's different types of data you can store. We're going to store a date. Save it. Done. Okay. Now before we leave here, I want to point out this visibility options, a little pane here. What that does is it can let you control who can see this tab. So right now it's set to all viewers and above. Remember those permissions, viewers, editor, managers. This means basically everybody who can log into People can see this tab. But if I had like some sensitive information that I don't want everybody to see, or I just want to cordon some information off to say like, I'm the youth pastor and this is just kind of stuff that nobody else cares about, they don't need to be bothered seeing it, you could use these visibility options to share with either groups of people based on their permission levels or individuals. Okay, we're going to leave it the way it is for now. And I want to go back to Joe's profile. Here comes pro tip. Ready? If you hit the slash button, that will open up that search box for you. So it's a great way to jump around. Okay, you got to be able to type though. There we go, Daniel. Joe Smith. There we go. That's quick and easy. Got right back to Joe's profile. Look at his membership info. And there is that membership class completion date. Pretty slick. Okay, so we've talked about storing attributes about Joe that don't change very often or ever, like his birthday or maybe his membership class completion date. But let's now kind of rewind or zoom out a little bit and look at ways that we can see Joe's involvement with our church, which is more like data that changes over time, right? Let's take a look at his activity feed. That's the first way we're going to do this. The activity feed shows data from all of our apps. So I'll show you here. We've got, it looks like Joe attends a small group. So back in May, he joined and attended a small group. He's registered his kid for VBS, and he's a greeter. His services says he's been scheduled to greet before. This activity feed even shows you changes that were made to his profile. So you see back in May, Daniel Murphy changed his membership status from regular attender to a member. So this is a great way to just kind of real quick see what his deal is. Does he come to church? Is he in a group? Does he serve? Like, let's just look at the activity feed real quick and get an idea. A couple things to know about this. That activity feed is only going to show you information from applications that you already have access to. So if I didn't have access to groups, I wouldn't see any information from groups. I can use these filters here also to turn on and off different applications. So if I don't want to see some of these things, I just want to know about check-ins or whatever, I can do that. And by default, we always hide giving, just because we feel like that's a little bit extra sensitive. So if you want to see his giving history, you can turn that on. If you have access to giving, we'll show you some of that. And even then, we keep it pretty high level. It just says that he donated to the general fund on April 21st. To get more details about that donation or any of these activity items, use this little button, and that will take you over to Giving or the appropriate app to show you a little more information. Okay, another way to keep track of data about Joe on an ongoing basis are notes. So the most common use case for these is to track prayer requests. We've got a whole bunch of tools around here to make this a really great way to track prayer requests and share them with your prayer team. So let me show you how that works. Here's Joe's profile, here's his notes. We're going to add a new note. The category for this note is going to be a prayer request. Okay, I'm going to say, safe travels on his business trip. Okay. Joe's traveling somewhere. He's got some safe travels. He's praying for safe travels. Maybe he dropped this on a piece of paper and put it in your offering plate or something. Maybe he texted you and you want to store this. So I'm going to hit save. Now this is cool because it's on his profile. And that's great if you want to go see Joe's history of prayer requests. But how do you get this out to his prayer team? There's some really cool features for that. I'm going to show you, let's see, click on prayer requests. That's going to take you to a list of every prayer request from all your profiles sorted with the most recent on top. So here's Joe's profile or prayer request and a handful of others right after it. From this page, you can filter these prayer requests. I can say, I just want to see the prayer requests in the last 7 days or the last month. I could export those to a CSV or print them, and this will print them in like a nice print-friendly format if you want to like hand it out. But even better than using paper would be if your prayer team could just get emails from these. So you can do that by managing this the prayer requests note category. I'm going to manage note categories, prayer requests, and in here we've got a notification section. This is super cool. You can add anybody's name to here. They don't have to be an administrator in your app, so they don't have to have any permissions to log into the app. Just anybody who's in your church, you can add them right here. So Aaron, Ashley, Emily, Abigail, Dana, they're all going to get an email. Every time there are new prayer requests, they're going to get an email that morning of all of the new prayer requests that came in yesterday. And that email is like mobile friendly. You don't have to log in anywhere. Just anywhere they're at, they can see those prayer requests and pray for people. It's a great way to get that out. Similar to our custom tab visibility settings, there are visibility settings for note categories as well. So in here we've got only me, Aaron, and Will are able to see prayer requests inside Planning Center. But you can share these again with permission levels or individual people. Okay, so we spent most of our time so far storing the details about a person, like a specific person, but let's switch gears a little bit now, and we're going to talk about workflows, which help your team collaborate and work together to follow up with people to make sure nobody falls through the cracks, okay? So let's go to workflows. Workflows are our tool to help you keep track of somebody like Joe as your church walks them through a process. So a good example here is a new member or a new visitor. You might want to follow up with them and send them an email. We've got a workflow here for new children's ministry volunteers. So anytime somebody volunteers for children's ministry, there's a few things that our church wants to do. We want to give them a call and just talk to them. Assuming that phone call goes well, we're going to send them an email with some information. We're going to order a background check. And assuming that background check comes in good, then we're going to add them to the team. This is all really easy to do with Planning Center. We have workflows is connected with all these different apps and all these different tools to make it something you can do right here on this screen. So let's just say Joe, remember we said Joe volunteered? Let's walk him through that process. So we got Joe Smith here. We're going to add him to the workflow. Add person. So right now I'm looking at the phone interview step, and Joe Smith is on it. This is, right here, this is what we call a card. If I click on that, that's going to open up a card which stores all of the history of Joe going through this workflow. So you can see a few seconds ago I created this card and then I was assigned to it. Me being assigned to it means I'm the person responsible for it. So if somebody else had have created this card and assigned it to me, I'd get an email a few minutes later that says, hey, there's a new card, go work on it. So I'm responsible to take some action here. So the step here is to give him the phone interview. So let's say I call him and he doesn't answer. What I want to do, I'm going to leave a note. I'm going to say I called, he didn't answer, ta-da, and save that note. So now we've got a little note here on his card. And I'm just going to close this card because I'm ready to move on to the next one. There aren't any, but I would move on to the next one if there was one. But, okay, so this page here is like, you want to think of this as your to-do list. If you've got cards that are sitting here ready to go, you should be working on them. But I can't work on Joe's card. I just called him. I can't call him back. I need to wait a few days. I want this card to go away so it's not bugging me and looking at me, telling me it's ready to work on, but it's not, right? We're going to snooze this card. There's a feature called snoozing. I'm going to snooze it for 3 days. Goodbye, Joe. Close this card. And now my to-do list is empty. Yay, inbox 0. We're so happy. Okay, if I click on snooze though, I'll be able to see his card. It says it's snoozed until Sunday. What'll happen on Sunday is this card will wake itself up, and I will get an email that says, hey, you need to call Joe again. It's all automated. But let's say Joe actually called me back, and I talked to him. Oh, what happened there? So I talked to Joe. He called me back. I'm going to unsnooze this card and leave a new note about our phone call. Phone call is going to be, he's in a small group, wants to serve. Keep it simple. Save the note. There's a new note there. Ta-da. Okay. So we're done. We talked to him. We like him. We want to move him on. Let's hit complete step. And now we go back to the phone interview step, and we're all done. Yay! Okay. The email. Let's send him an email, okay? So there's two ways I can email people from this step. I've got two people that need to get an email. Let's look at Joe's card. I can click send email and just type it out here and whatever, you type in my email and hit send. What's cool about sending it from there is when I send it that way, when he replies to that email, the reply will come right back into this card, and I'll also get the email as well. I'll get an email that says, hey, Joe replied to the card, but that history will be tracked right here inside the card, which can be handy. Another way we could email these people is to do it, since it's an informational email, it's going to have the same information, so it'd be great if we could send the same email to both those people at the same time. If you can, I'm going to click on the little check boxes on their cards. And when you do that, it opens up this bulk actions menu. You can do all kinds of cool things from here. You can complete the step to move them to the next step. You can send it backwards. You can delete the cards. But what we're going to do is send them an email. With this, we have email templates that you can use as well. So we're going to use the Welcome to Children's Ministry template. If you're a manager, you have this button, which lets you manage those templates and set those up and customize them for your church. We're going to use the Welcome to Children's Ministry template. This even has a little placeholder in here. So when Joe gets the email, it's going to say, hello, Joe, and then have all the details of what he needs to know. So if I was ready to send this, I'd hit send, and those emails would go out, and I'd be done. Let's just say I did. Ta-da, we're done. I'm going to complete this step and move them on. Yay! Okay, next step. Request background check. Hey, where'd they go? They're gone. Oh, but they're not gone. If you look at this little gray dot over here, there's a 2. So what that means is there's 2 cards in this workflow, but they're not assigned to me. Somebody else needs to work on them. The default assignee on this step is Emily. She's the person on our team that orders all our background checks. I'm going to change the filter here to show Emily's cards. There they are. They're assigned to Emily. Okay, so we need to order some background checks for these people. Let's select all. And then I'm going to use a bulk action. This bulk action menu is something you're going to see in a few places in our app, and we'll run into it a couple more times as we go along. So we'll keep digging in deeper as we see it. For now, we're just going to order a background check. Okay, so we're going to say order the basic check for these guys, and we can even skip anyone who happens to already have a background check on file. If I hit perform action, that would go ahead and order those background checks for those guys. And then they're done. We'll move them on. Okay. So now they're on the check background check status. So background checks can be instantaneous as soon as the person gives their consent and everything. But sometimes it takes people a day or two to even check their email, right? So when I look at the check background, so there's a whole step for coming back later and checking the status of the results of those background checks. Here on the check background check status, where those cards go again, right? They're gone. There's a 0 here. Those are snoozed. There's a setting on a step to automatically snooze cards. So if I go to edit the step, you'll see there's an auto snooze setting. So these are going to be snoozed automatically for 5 days when they hit this step. So what that means is Emily, well, I was pretending to be Emily. I ordered the background checks, and then these cards got snoozed. 5 days later, Emily, because she's the one assigned to them, she's going to get an email that says, hey, these cards are ready for you to go check their background check status. Let's just go ahead and select them. We will unsnooze them. And then let's say these guys both, they're good. They're upstanding citizens. Their background checks are clear. Complete the step. Let's move them on, okay? So the last step, they're ready to go. They've got their phone interview. They've got their email. Their background checks are good. let's get them on the team, okay? So we do all of our scheduling inside Planning Center Services. We need to add them to the children's ministry team as a teacher inside Planning Center Services. We could go over to Services and do that, but that'd be annoying, right? Let's do it right here. We'll use that bulk actions menu again. I'm going to select both those cards. And this time, for application instead of people, I'm going to use Services. We're going to use the action Add to Team. Service type, San Diego Contemporary Service. The team is the children's ministry, and the position is a teacher. I'm not actually going to do it, but I could hit that, and that would assign these guys to that team in Services, and I'm all done. Woohoo! They've completed this workflow. Yay! That was easy, right? I'm going to hit complete this step, and they're gone, and they've gone through to the completed column. I'm going to show you Joe's profile, what this looks like. From everybody's profile, if you click on this Workflows tab, you can see a history of all the workflows that they've ever been a part of, where they are in that process. And this says he's completed on September 12th. Pretty cool. So hopefully right now the gears in your head are kind of turning about ways that you can use this in your church. I'm sure you have some processes you could probably automate and collaborate on a little bit better. If you're like pretty much every church I've ever talked to. Okay, so next up, let's talk about how we can digitally collect some information from people like Joe and then automatically add them to a workflow right from our website using forms, okay? Forms. At my church, we have a piece of paper, they call it a Connect card, and every week I can put in my name. If I have a new phone number or address, I can update it on that card. I can put in my prayer requests, so I can just write them on that card. And also I could volunteer. I can say I want to serve in children's ministry, check the box. And then drop that in the offering plate, and then somehow they end up getting a hold of me. Let's recreate that Connect card digitally here in Planning Center. So this is going to be our Connect card, okay? And we know we want to collect a few things from people. We want to get their phone number. We want them to be able to update their address. We want to collect prayer requests, and those are notes. So I'm going to drag this notes field down here, and I'm going to give it a title. How can we pray? This isn't my keyboard. Pray for you. There we go. I did it. It's the hardest part of this thing. How can we pray for you? I'm going to say prayer request. So what's going to happen is anytime someone fills out this little text box, they're going to get that note is going to be added to their profile as that category. So this will go as a prayer request. If you have notifications set up, then the next morning your whole prayer team will get that prayer request. And let's say we have let's do some workflow fields. Here's today I gave my life to Christ. So we have a workflow for new believers. So if somebody just came to Christ today or this week, we want to follow up with them, and we're going to use a workflow to do that. So if somebody checks this box, they'll automatically be added to that workflow. We can even do something a little more complicated with these workflows. We can say, I want to serve in, and we can set up multiple workflows with this one. So I can say tech, say worship team, and this one is going to add somebody to the worship team interest workflow. And we'll have another option here, children's ministry. And this one is to do the new children's ministry volunteers workflow. We'll just have two options for this example. So now there's two checkboxes. So if somebody checks the worship team checkbox, they'll get added to one workflow. If they check the children's ministry, they'll get added to a different workflow. And that's probably enough for this form. We're done. Let's take a look at it. Uh-oh. I'm logged in. I want to be logged in. There we go. Ta-da! Here it is. How easy is that? We have a whole form. It'll collect people's names, emails, their phone, address, prayer requests, and can even put them into workflows. I'm going to show you how this works. I want to show you a couple cool things. So let's say I'm Mr. Bill Smith, and I am going to fill out this form. Here's my number, 619. Okay, I'll skip the address. And let's say, Bill wants to join the children's ministry. Hit submit. Ta-da! Joe's done. He didn't have to log in, didn't have to do anything, just filled out the form and hit save. Let's go back to people here. Now if I click on submissions, we'll see, ta-da, there's Bill's submission. We'll get back to that in a minute after I show you some more details here. We're going to dig into that. Let's look at some other settings you can do on your form. Forms have sharing permissions, just like custom tabs and workflows. So we can say, we want, I don't know, Derek Brown. We want Derek Brown to be able to see the submissions on this workflow. So he gets a view-only share. If we wanted Derek to be able to actually edit the workflow and change the fields, we could give him manage access. Something we've decided is that all managers can always see all forms. So that way you don't end up with a form on your website somewhere that nobody has access to change because that manager has left town or whatever. So all managers can always see all forms. I feel like that's really important. Down here is the notification list. So if you wanted someone to get a notification every time someone filled out this form for whatever reason, you could do that. That'd be really helpful if you're trying to keep multiple teams in sync or somebody needs to know like last minute information. They need to get that email right away. Those will send out immediately. If your form is done, you want to keep those submissions around in your database, but you don't want people to be able to submit any new ones, you can make it inactive. We'll leave it. And you can even embed this form directly on your website. So if you follow the directions linked to in this help doc, maybe send that to your web person. They'll be able to put it on your website, and when someone clicks a button on your website, the form will pop up in a little pop-up right there on your website without even having to leave. It's all built in. Let's talk about automations. Automations are a way to like supercharge your form, add a lot of power to it. We showed you those actions in workflows where you could add someone to a team or order a background check for them automatically. Automations do the same thing, where every time somebody submits this form, you can automatically, Planning Center people will automatically take some kind of action on that person's profile. So some suggestions, real common things are sending an email. You might want to have somebody get the free coffee email or the thanks for filling out the form email. And these are all templates. If you're a manager, of course, you can edit those. You might want to add them to a workflow automatically, so without them having to check a box, they just automatically get added to a workflow. And you can even create other automations using that same modal to do some things in our other apps. Okay, let's go look at Bill Smith's submission again. If I click on that guy, we see all the details. I'm going to go to his profile. Remember, Bill didn't exist. We just created that profile. And here it is. Here's his profile. Ta-da! Brand new. It's there. Now, let's say Bill Smith was already in our database. Maybe he was as Will Smith or something, William Smith. But he submitted this form as Bill Smith. We have a tool called a duplicate detector. Sometimes it takes a minute or two for that duplicate detector to run and find duplicates. But what it does is it looks at names, email addresses, phone numbers, and it gathers all these clues. It'll look for nicknames, it'll look for misspellings, and try to find profiles that are similar to each other, and then present them to you and say, hey, I think these are duplicates. Do you agree? And if they are, you can merge them. Down here on this dashboard, we have a link to some potential duplicates. We'll click on Ashley Johnson's profile, or link here. And this is going to present us with two different profiles. There's an Ashley Johnson, EY Ashley, and then an Ashley 2E Johnson. They've got the same phone number, same email address. It's just the name is spelled differently. This one's 7 years old. This one's a day old. And looks like Ashley with 2 E's has only ever joined a group. So I can use all this information, piece it together, and say, you know what probably happened is Ashley went to this small group, they spelled her name wrong on the attendance sheet, and now there's two Ashleys. Let's get rid of that. That's annoying. So I can hit merge duplicate, and that is going to take all of the history from Ashley with 2 E's profiles and merge it right into Ashley EY's profile, and we're all cleaned up. Easy peasy, huh? Cool. So we've seen forms, we've seen how they can help you keep. So we've seen forms to help you get data from people. We've seen how you can keep track about details about people. Now let's see how Planning Center people can help you find like groups of people based on all kinds of different criteria. Okay, we're going to use lists to do that. Once you've built a list of these people, you can use lists to communicate with them, to add them to workflows, to follow up with them. We're going to go through an example. Let's say we've got VBS coming up, and we want to send some promotions. Okay, so we want to promote VBS to some people. First of all, who comes to VBS? Kids, right? So let's search for all of the kids who are in kindergarten through 5th grade. I'm going to add a condition here to my list. Grade is between, let's say, kindergarten and 5th grade. I'm going to hit submit. When I do that, Pico goes out and finds all the kids in our database who are in kindergarten through 5th grade. I've got 40 kids. It's a good start, but let's make this list better. Okay, I'm going to show you how this keeps getting better. We'll use rules, and we'll say, you know what? I know some of these kids haven't been here recently. Let's find all the kids who have only been here in the last 6 months. Some of these kids aren't actually coming around, so let's not bother promoting VBS to them. So when I hit submit, that's going to get data from people to find kids in those grades. It's also going to go to check-ins. Uh-oh, what'd I do? Oh, I said 6 days. Woo. In the last 6 months. Now we're going to find all the kids who have attended in the last 6 months who are who are in kindergarten through 5th grade. And that whittled our list down a little bit from 40 kids to 34 kids. Now I know some of these kids have already registered. So let's not bother inviting the kids that have already registered, right? So we're going to go to registrations, events, registered for a specific event, Vacation Bible School. And instead of including these kids in the list, we're going to exclude these kids from the list. So now we're really starting to whittle things down. We're going to go from 34 kids down to 27. So 7 kids were already registered. So we're getting really close. This is a pretty good list. This is a good list of kids who we think we might want to invite to VBS. The problem is we want to send these kids an email, and kids don't check their email. So let's actually make this list a list of their parents. Right now it's set to include exact matches. And I'm actually going to change this to say the primary contacts, and that's based on their household. So find the primary contact of the household of all of these kids, and then hit submit. So now we're going to go from 27 primary contacts, or 27 kids to 20 primary contacts. And now we've got a list of adults who are the primary contacts of the kids who we think should come to VBS, or we should invite to VBS. That was that easy. This is the kind of thing that if you're used to some older church management systems, this was a really hard report to pull. You had to talk to your database person, and it would take a long time. This is so easy. Anybody can do it. You are now an expert. You know everything about it. Pretty easy. Let me show you a couple details, little gotchas you might need to know along the way. This list right now is the list. These are the results as of right now when I built this list. If I come back a week from now, this list is going to look exactly the same, even if there's new people who match this criteria. So you can hit refresh, and that will go out to all the apps and get you fresh information. There's also automations on lists, just like we saw on forms, where every time a form is submitted, we could perform some kind of action. We could also do that with automation. So this is really helpful if you want to maybe send an email every time. You could search for people who maybe they used to come to your church and they are not coming anymore. Or maybe it's the first time somebody gives a donation. You want to send them an email. Maybe you want to add them to a workflow. You can add an automation, and this will go back to that same list of actions that are available and maybe add somebody to a workflow. So every time somebody shows up on this list, let's add them to a workflow. And of course, when they get added to that workflow, whoever that person's assigned to will get a notification email letting them know there's somebody they need to follow up with. There's a few visibility settings on here too, or different settings. One is visibility. So right now I'm the only person who can see this list, but of course I can share it with either groups based on permissions or individuals. There's some settings here to help you categorize and organize your list based on campus or category. We can enable auto refresh so that every night when in the middle of the night this list will refresh, which is really cool when coupled with those automations. So you can have a list that's just constantly refreshing every night and says, hey, are there any new kids I need to contact? If there are, send them the VBS invite email. And we also have a MailChimp integration here as well. So if we have MailChimp connected to this account and I could sync this list to MailChimp and then head over to MailChimp and send build a campaign that would go to these people. You can also email these people directly from here. I can say email this list and either use my templates or just type out an email right there. You can also perform actions on all of these people at once, export a CSV, or even print it in a few different ways. So we have covered keeping details about people. We have covered seeing somebody's activity and involvement in your church. We've covered how to follow up with people and make sure your church doesn't fall through the cracks. We've covered forms, which let you collect information from people, and how you can use lists to find groups of people to either follow up with or to communicate with, and how to keep your database tidy in all of that. And that really covers the pillars of Planning Center people. If you have any other questions about it, please feel free to use that help desk again. Talk to our support team. They'd love to hear from you. And that is all we're going to talk about. This video is going to be available on planning.center/university. So be sure to share that. And thank you for your time. I hope you had fun. Have a good day.